He had wired over $100,000 to his family in the past decade, but the moment he said no to a wedding dress, he became the villain. Logan grew up in a modest home on the east side of Austin, Texas. He was the quiet one, the child who didn't raise his voice, who lined up his books alphabetically, who stayed inside during football games to draw horses on paper bags. His mother used to say, "Boys don't act like that." His father would look away, pretending not to hear. It never turned into a fight. It didn't have to. Silence did the job just fine. As he grew older, Logan learned how to become useful. Not loved, not celebrated useful. He studied hard, graduated early, and found a stable job in finance. From his very first paycheck, he sent money home. When his dad lost his job after the company downsized, Logan covered the mortgage. When his sister Claire got into a private university, he paid her tuition. When his mother needed dental surgery, he signed the check. He never asked for anything in return. Not a thank you card, not a family dinner, not even a birthday call. Every time his phone lit up with a family member's name, he knew there was a reason, and that reason always had a dollar sign in front of it. His family never said it out loud, but they didn't have to. Logan was the wallet, the fixer, the one who made it and therefore owed everyone else. At least, that's how they saw it. Claire had always been the favorite and beautiful, charming, effortlessly adored. She never needed to ask twice. From the age of 6, she had been called the princess of the house. She crossed orange, and things changed. She dreamed, and others made it happen, even Logan. But things shifted when Claire announced her engagement. At first, Logan was happy for her. Despite their differences, he believed every person deserved to be loved, to be celebrated. Until he got a call from his mother, not to ask, but to inform Claire's dream dress is just over $6,000. "She's already picked it. We told her you'd help with the cut. You've always taken care of us." "Sweetie, it wasn't a question. It was a transaction." He stood in his living room, phone pressed to his ear, as the words sank into his chest like stones. Not once had anyone asked how he was doing. Not once had they asked how he'd survived living alone all these years. Not once had they asked why he never brought anyone home. His mother's voice was still going. It would mean so much to her. "Logan, you know how important this is?" He answered simply, "No." The silence that followed wasn't just heavy, it was explosive. His mother didn't argue, not directly. She hung up. A few hours later, Logan's sister sent a voice message laced with passive rage. "I always knew you were jealous. You don't get to ruin my moment just because no one wants to marry you." He didn't respond. By the next morning, the group chat was full of guilt-tripping messages. Cousins he hadn't spoken to in years chimed in. "Family is about support," one said. Another posted, "If I had Logan's money, I'd do the right thing." They didn't know him. Not really. They didn't know about the nights he came home to a silent apartment, to leftovers eaten alone, to birthdays celebrated by unlocking his phone and scrolling past everyone else's lives. They didn't know that he gave because he thought giving meant belonging. But now he was starting to wonder, had he ever belonged? He sat in his kitchen that night with the lights off. His hands trembled as he stared at the invoice for Claire's dress that someone had emailed him without permission. He closed it. This wasn't about a dress. It was about the realization that love in his family was conditional. And Logan, after years of trying, had finally failed to meet the conditions. And somewhere deep in that pain, something began to shift. He wouldn't be the wallet anymore. He would be the son he had always deserved to be to himself. If you've ever been treated like a resource instead of a human being, if you've ever felt invisible until someone needed your help, you are not alone. And this story is for you. Follow Heart Stories for more real stories of strength, truth, and healing. The silence didn't last. It never does in families like his, where guilt is a louder language than love. After Logan refused to pay for Claire's wedding dress, the messages started flooding in. Not from his sister at first, but from his mother. "She's devastated. Logan, She thought you'd be there for her like always. Then came the follow-up. You're her big brother. This is what family does. Logan read those words with a stillness he had never felt before. He wasn't angry, not exactly, but something had shattered inside him, something he had spent his entire life patching up with money and silence. And now it was too broken to fix. When Claire did reach out, it wasn't to speak, it was to accuse. You've always been bitter, she wrote. You hate that I'm getting married before you. Admit it, this isn't about money. You're just jealous because no one wants you. The words stung more than he expected. Maybe because they weren't just cruel, they were familiar. He had heard versions of that same judgment his entire life. From school bullies, from neighbors, from distant relatives who whispered that Logan was soft, odd, or not like the other boys. His sister had never defended him, not once. And now she had put it in writing. His queerness wasn't just invisible, it was an offense. Logan didn't answer, but he did open up to someone else. Adrian had been in Logan's life for nearly 4 years. A calm, steady presence. A man who spoke slowly, listened fully, and laughed with his whole chest. He worked with animals, but somehow seemed to understand people better than anyone Logan had ever known. That night, Logan told Adrian everything. Not just about the dress, the texts, the accusations, but about what it felt like to be the other son, the one who could wire thousands of dollars and still not be invited to a family dinner, the one who was good enough to fix the crisis, but not good enough to be called when someone gave birth or died. Adrian didn't interrupt. When Logan finished speaking, he reached across the table, took his hand, and said, "They've never seen you, but I do." Those 5 words almost broke Logan. He realized he had never introduced Adrian to his family. Not once, not even casually. Partly because he feared rejection. Partly because, deep down, he had believed they didn't deserve to know him, not the real him. But now, something inside him was done hiding. He wasn't going to fight for a seat at a table where he had always been unwelcome. He was going to build a table of his own, and he was going to start by inviting Adrian to meet them. Not to ask for approval, not to force acceptance, but to tell the truth finally, without shame. Logan planned the dinner with methodical care. He chose a quiet restaurant his mother liked, booked a private table, and sent an invitation to the family group chat. He told them he had something important to share. His mother agreed with a cold, "We'll see if we can make it." Claire didn't respond, but Logan didn't flinch. For the first time in years, he wasn't trying to earn their love. He was simply going to be honest and let whatever followed be their choice, not his burden. This wasn't about being right, it was about being real. And sometimes the most radical act in a family built on expectations is to stop performing. The table was set for 6. Logan arrived early, checking the placement of every glass, every fork. The restaurant was quiet, softly lit. He had chosen a space that felt safe, private, controlled, the opposite of how his childhood home had ever felt. Adrian stood beside him, dressed simply, calmly. He wasn't nervous. He was grounded, as always. Logan envied that, but he also leaned on it. At exactly 7, Logan's mother arrived with Claire trailing behind. His aunt and cousin had come too uninvited, but expected. That was how his family moved as a unit, especially when confrontation was involved. The small talk was polite, strained. Claire avoided eye contact. His mother smiled the way Southern women do when they're preparing to attack, not embrace. The food came, plates clinked, conversations danced around weather, work, and wedding planning. No one asked about Adrian. No one acknowledged why they were truly there. So Logan began. "I wanted you all here tonight because there's someone important I want you to meet," he said, voice steady. "Adrian isn't just my partner. He's the man I've built my life with." There was a pause. His mother blinked. Claire looked away. His aunt's fork paused in midair. Logan reached over and gently took Adrian's hand. "For years, I've been giving everything I had to this family, hoping that one day being myself wouldn't mean being outside of it. But I'm done hoping. This is who I am. This is who I love. Adrian didn't speak. He didn't have to. His presence said enough calm, kind, real. What followed wasn't explosive. It was colder than that. Claire stood up, her chair scraping sharply against the floor. "So this is what this is about," she said. Eyes narrowed. "This whole scene, you just wanted attention." Logan didn't flinch. "No," he replied. "I wanted to be seen." Claire's lip curled. "You never cared about this family. You just wanted to be the victim, the martyr, the gay son with a sob story." Logan stared at her. "I paid your tuition. Claire, I paid for Mom's surgery. I helped when Dad got sick. I didn't do it for thanks. I did it because I thought that's what family does." Her voice cracked then, just slightly. "You want credit for throwing money at us," Logan said quietly. "I want respect." His mother stood next. "This isn't the place for these conversations," she said sharply. "You're humiliating everyone." Adrian gently squeezed his hand. But Logan wasn't done. "I've spent my entire life making myself smaller to keep the peace," he said. "I won't do that anymore." The table went quiet. Dinner ended early. They left in a slow, cold drift, no hugs, no goodbyes. But the real blow came the next day. Claire posted a photo on her Instagram story, an old college picture of Logan, dressed flamboyantly at a campus pride event, captioned, "Some people only care about family when there's a spotlight." Within hours, it was screenshotted, shared, dissected in their hometown. Whispers grew. The same relatives who once asked Logan for money now posted vague statuses about disgrace, about forgetting your roots, about seeking fame over faith. It was the first time Logan had seen his identity used as ammunition by his own blood. And yet, somehow, he didn't break. Because what shattered at that dinner table wasn't his dignity, it was the illusion that he ever had a place at their table to begin with. The betrayal cut deep. He wrote it at midnight. There was no plan, no outline, just the weight of a silence that had followed him home, pressing on his chest like it had something to say. So Logan let it speak. He sat at his kitchen table, fingers shaking slightly, and began to write. Not on his phone, not in an email, but by hand pen on paper, the way people used to write when words had to matter. It wasn't an angry letter. It wasn't even bitter. It was just the truth, finally laid bare. He told his mother everything. The nights he cried himself to sleep in college because no one from home ever called. The way he used to watch his friends go home for holidays while he stayed in an empty dorm room, pretending he preferred the quiet. The time he came out in a whispered voice to his father and was met not with rage, but with a cold, suffocating silence that never left. He told her about Adrian, about the man who held him on the nights when the world felt too sharp, about the safety he had built, not from the world, but from his own family. And he told her this, "I don't need you to agree with who I am, but I needed you to love me anyway." And maybe that was too much to ask. He mailed the letter, tracked it, watched it arrive, and then he waited. No call, no message, no response. But something else did arrive unexpected. Heavy, hand-delivered by an elderly woman with gentle eyes and a voice that trembled as she spoke his name. "I shouldn't be the one giving this to you," she said, "but your father trusted me with it, and I think he would have wanted you to have it." It was a copy of a handwritten will. Logan's hands trembled as he opened it. The ink was faded, the signature unmistakable. It was his father's handwriting, and in it, his father had left the house, the savings, and a large portion of his pension to Logan. Not Claire, not their mother, Logan. But that wasn't how things had turned out. The current legal will, the one filed and executed after his father's death, had Logan's name removed. Entirely. Every asset had been redirected. Every instruction changed. The woman explained what she knew. After his father's health began to decline, he had written the first will and asked her, a retired notary and trusted neighbor, to hold on to a copy. But shortly before his death, The family had restructured the documents through another firm, without Logan's knowledge. There was no proof of coercion, no obvious crime, just a quiet erasure. Logan sat in stunned silence. His mother hadn't just excluded him from a conversation, she had rewritten his father's final wishes. The betrayal at the dinner table had hurt, but this was different. This was calculated. And yet, he didn't scream. He didn't call a lawyer. He didn't post about it, because for the first time he understood something deeper than anger. He understood why he had been giving so much for so long, not just money, but silence, patience, hope. He had been trying to buy his way back into something that had never actually included him. Not really. He had thought that if he gave enough, forgave enough, stayed quiet enough, someone would look at him and say, "You belong here." But what he needed wasn't their permission, it was his own. He didn't take them to court. He could have. The original will had weight. A good lawyer could have made noise. There were arguments to be made, documents to challenge, motives to examine. But Logan didn't want a courtroom victory. He wanted freedom. He wanted peace, not compensation. So instead of fighting over what had been taken from him, he created something new. With the money he had saved, Logan established a scholarship fund in his father's name, the one who, in the end, had quietly chosen him. The fund was designated for LGBTQ youth from conservative families, for those who had been cut off, cast out, or simply made to feel like love came with conditions. He named it the First Son Foundation, and he never told his mother, not out of spite, but because it was no longer her story to be part of. A month later, Logan and Adrian packed their things and left Austin for good. They moved to the Oregon coast, to a quiet town lined with pine trees and salt air. No one knew his past there. No one expected anything from him. And for the first time, Logan began to build something that didn't require approval or permission. He planted a garden. He started cooking again. He laughed more. He watched Adrian fall asleep beside him and felt, not fear, not shame, but gratitude, the kind that fills you when you've almost drowned and finally break the surface. Claire got married without him. He saw a photo of the dress online. It was exactly the one she had wanted. The caption said, "Surrounded by the people who matter most." He felt a flicker of pain, then let it go, because he knew the difference now. Being excluded is painful, but choosing your own peace, that's power. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees, Logan sat at his desk and opened the letter he had never mailed, the second one, the one written months after the first. He read it aloud, to no one in particular. "Mom, I used to think that love meant staying, that real family meant giving, no matter how much it cost. But I was wrong. Love isn't self-erasure, and family isn't built on guilt. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done performing." He folded the letter, placed it in a drawer, then walked outside, where Adrian was waiting with 2 cups of coffee and that same quiet steadiness in his eyes. And for the first time in his life, Logan didn't feel like he had to explain himself. He was home. If you've ever had to leave someone behind just to become who you are, what helped you let go? We'd love to hear your story. And if Logan's journey resonated with you, follow Heart Stories for more voices like his raw, real, and worth hearing.